Welcome to Aligned and Alive, where we move beyond the surface and into your deep knowing. I'm Shyane Montgomery, and this is your space to trust your intuition, clear what no longer serves, and rise into your highest self. Your wisdom is already within. You're here to remember.
They have all the answers and that they just need to trust. The crazier it is, the more likely it's the truth. So often now we download stuff or we hear things and we're like, well, that sounds kind of cool, but I don't know how. How is not your job? Get out of your own way. God knows. God is a God of a zillion, an infinite amount of possibilities. So your mind only knows what it knows from what it's experienced. So if you really want to be all you can be, then just don't question. Just follow the breadcrumbs and you'll be led.
All right, welcome back. Today, the topic that we're going to enter into is leaning into more trusting of ourselves. I'm here with Michelle Warnica, a spiritual guide, author, and creator of the Mariposa House of Metamorphosis in Mexico, a sanctuary she received through divine guidance after selling everything she owned and following that call of her soul. A former corporate sales executive who survived a paralyzing stroke and a complete life reinvention. Michelle now helps women over 55 connect with their intuitive gifts and step boldly into the life that they were born to live. Her story is raw, empowering, and a living example that it's never too late to awaken your purpose. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
So good to be with you. So Michelle and I met through our book writing group, and it was just one of those things that we connected as soon as we met. And then she came to my house here in Idaho, and I just fell in love with her and the gift that she is in this world and the way that she shares her gifts. And Michelle, let's just start by dropping in. Would you be willing to share with us kind of how you drop in and get present and get connected?
Yes, I'd be happy to do that. The first thing that I do is ground, because grounding is the most important. Oh, it's a cord between you and the ground.
Okay, so this is just something we're visualizing.
Exactly, because we have to connect to something. Otherwise, I mean, gravity holds us on the ground, but it's so much more empowering to actually be connected to the earth. So I do this every day, and it's a way that I get into my body and really become one with who I am. Otherwise, I'm all over the place.
If we're not grounded, what do we experience?
You can be kind of scattered. You can feel, even now with the energies, because we have really intense energies on the planet. So you might feel dizzy. You might have ringing in your ears. You might feel just off. Lately, I've been guided to connect from my sacral chakra. So you can envision like an energy center just right in between your pubic bone and your belly button. And you want to put a grounding cord on that. So imagine it like a ball of energy. And then you put a tube at the bottom of that ball. And then I want you to seal it up. So the way that I imagine that is like I take energy and I seal it up just like I would seal up around the edge of a bathtub, like if you're caulking, because you want to make it airtight. That's the point. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and seal up that tube from the bottom of your sacral chakra, and then send it all the way down, 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 down into the earth as far as it will go, all the way down. And then you want to imagine when you get to the center of the planet that you connect with some sort of terrestrial matter. So maybe it's a big piece of earth. Maybe it's a hematite, which is a really incredibly grounding crystal. Then you want to imagine that this tube, maybe it has tree roots at the end. And so they wrap around whatever you're going to connect to. So let's just say we're connecting to a big piece of the earth that just happens to be in the center of the planet. And you're going to use those roots to wrap around it. So again, you're completely connected. And then you want to use that sealing method to seal up on that end again so that you're sealed on both ends. You don't want any energy leaks. So once you feel like you're really sealed up on both ends, then I just start releasing. First of all, you should feel right away that you're releasing energy just from the gravity.
What I noticed is like an energy kind of pulling downward.
Yes. So the gravity is going to start to take that energy out of you. And this is pulling you and connecting you to the earth. But it's also allowing you to release energy that really there's no reason, because we carry a lot of energy around that we don't need. So what I like to say first, I have a list of commands that I use. And the first one is, I release all the foreign energy that served its purpose and is ready to return to source. So you say that, and then you should feel whatever's releasing even intensify. And then you want to release other people's energy, because everywhere we go, every person that we meet, we pick up their energy. Could be someone that you hugged. It might be someone you just stood in line at the coffee shop with or sat next to on the train. And so you want to release other people's energy. You want to release, I always release fear, because even if you don't feel fearful, we have an unconscious fear that we're not
I'm
even
releasing
aware of.
energy over here, sneezing.
That's, sneezing, burping, yawning, it shows that you're moving energy. So we're going to go ahead and release all lower density energies. So I just say that as a general overview. But if you're feeling something, like if you're angry or if you're frustrated or if you're just feeling sad or lonely, whatever you're feeling, you can just send it right down the grounding cord. And all you have to do is say, I release sadness, I release loneliness, I release fear.
The first thing is like tuning into ourself to take account for what it is we're feeling that is not of our highest frequency.
Yes. And you can see, if you haven't already checked it out, I would recommend Googling emotional frequency scale. You can Google that, and there's a zillion of them. And it will show you at the bottom is like shame, guilt, anger. And then as you move up the scale, you get to like neutrality, acceptance, peace, joy, different levels. So you want the low density ones are all the ones that are below neutral. So anger, shame, guilt, frustration, annoyance. But usually when I'm doing it, words will pop into my head, or I might see colors. And if I see colors, then I release those too. And just by saying it and acknowledging it, just say hello to it. And just by that, it will automatically say, oh, she sees me. I got to go, and it'll start moving out of your ground.
Wow, that's so powerful.
It really is. My clients call it the dump. And I really recommend you do this every morning and every night before you go to bed. And if you're going into a situation that you're nervous about, you can do it anywhere. I've done it standing in line at the grocery store. No one knows what you're doing. And you don't have to say anything out loud. It can just all be in your head, and you can release all that energy before you go on stage, before you do a presentation, before you have a tough conversation. These are all, release your nerves, your anxiety, release expectations. These are all things that get in our way that you can just send down the grounding cord.
This is so powerful for humans to reclaim their truth. And it's something that like I think would be a really powerful practice, because we're creating in the spiritual to see it manifest in the physical. If we're no longer like stuck in those lower frequencies of shame and guilt, what would we be stepping into in our lives? So once we're grounded and we've released everything that is of lower density and not our truth, where do we go from there?
The next thing I do to connect is I bring energy up from my feet. So I imagine grounding cords or roots coming out of the balls of my feet, or the feet chakras, into the earth, down a few thousand feet, not all the way to the center, just down to where there's clean energy. And then I pull that clean energy up through my feet and my ankles and my calves and my knees and my thighs and my hips. And then from my hips, I bring it over to my root chakra, which is right there at your tailbone. And then I imagine that energy running in a clockwise direction around my root chakra, clearing, cleaning, cleansing, and then releasing down the grounding cord. So you're bringing up earth energy through your legs, and then you're clearing those leg channels, and then you're moving it out your root chakra into the earth. And you should feel it coming up your legs. And then what I do is I imagine a golden light coming in through my crown above, because I believe that source is golden light up above. So I bring that in through my crown again, and it circles around my crown in a clockwise direction, cleaning, clearing, cleansing, and then moves down my chakras from my crown all the way down to my root, where it connects with that leg energy. This conscious way of doing it is a good way to just clear out your energy channels. And so I usually sit like this for anywhere from 3 to 30 minutes to clear my channels. And then once I do that, then I connect to source.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a really powerful practice. Can you go into more teaching about how we already have these channels that we're unaware of, and maybe how you started to learn about this?
Yes. And like I said, all this is in that free gift. So if you really want to learn more about this, it's all there in my video. Writing my book now, Being Human When You're From Another Planet. I'm realizing that it started, when I was very young. I started knowing that I was different. I started thinking about things differently, but I didn't really activate into those gifts until much, much, much later. I think after I quit drinking. And I think that's why I was an alcoholic, because I was hypersensitive. I didn't know it. So I just drank and drank and drank, trying to numb as much as I could so that I didn't have to really be in the world. And then when I stopped drinking in 2018, within about a year, everything started to come up. Like, it was just like, okay, you're awake now, so here's some shit to deal with. And I'm like, okay, great. So anyway, so in 2018, I quit drinking. In 2019, I started becoming clairaudient. I started hearing voices, and I started being guided.
Well, what took you to the point of deciding to get sober?
I had a lot of digestive issues, and so my body was complete with that alcoholic journey, and so it was very clear to me it was time to stop drinking. I ran in my family, and I always knew that I was going to be the one to break the cycle. I just was never ready. And then my body said, it's time. And I said, okay. And then once my gifts started waking up, then all this stuff happened where I just didn't know really what was happening. I always used to say, I wish this came with a handbook, because it didn't. I just kept hearing voices, and I didn't really know how to manage them or control them, or really if they were real or who they were. And so I went on a journey to find my teacher, and I worked with several teachers along my path. And I found my first teacher in 2020, who I still work with, who's our publisher, Kira Brinton. She was my first teacher. And then in 22, I met my second teacher, who I still work with. And she was the one that really taught me all these tools, transmedium tools that I can really use based on my gifts and all because the portals that I have open. She's the one that has really helped me with all that. And she's the one that really taught me grounding and the importance of grounding and how to use grounding to heal almost everything. I use it every single day to heal everything. I guess that teacher, her name is Karen Fogarty. And what I learned from her was that I was a transmedium. And what that means is I travel out of my body easily and often. And sometimes not even knowing it. And I've been doing it for years and not knowing it. So when you have that kind of ability, what I've learned is when you're leaving your body and coming back in, you're opening portals. So anytime you're not in the present moment, you're opening a portal. So if you're thinking about, oh, what am I going to do later today? You've opened a portal. If you think about, oh, what did I do yesterday? You've opened a portal. Every time you're not in that present moment. So I had all these portals that were open. And so we live in a world that is full of unseen energies. And so, we've been programmed to believe that if you can't see it, it doesn't exist. And that's not true. Think about it. We have wireless data. So think about all the information that's just flowing through the world, right? Throwing it out in the air that's going right through you. Because when a being dies, when a human dies, or a dog or a cat, consciousness. So when a being passes, we're really just in this meat suit, and but our soul is eternal. It lives on forever and ever and ever. So when the body is complete, then the soul leaves the body, and sometimes it goes right to the other side, and sometimes it doesn't know where to go. Sometimes it doesn't even know it's dead. So it may float around, it may haunt a house, it may just hang around with people that it knows. It may just be looking for the light and not seeing it. So there's all kinds of that kind of stuff happening that you don't see, that I didn't know
And I
existed
feel like
either.
we don't really talk about that or learn how to work with that.
Well, most people don't need to. Most people, it's not going to bother, but if you're, but some people like me, that is a transmedium, like I said, I didn't even know what that term meant when she told me, I think you're a transmedium. And I'm like, what does that mean? So, but now that she's told me, I see it more often, and I see it in my life. I see it in all the challenges that I've had throughout this awakening. And probably when I was drinking, there was things happening, because very low density energies and beings are attracted to people that are living in low density frequencies. And by low density, I mean, like I said, on that emotional scale, under neutral, in anger and shame, in guilt, all these lower density emotions. And when you're an alcoholic, or you're a person that's, numbing all the time, maybe you're addicted to prescription drugs, or maybe you're a pothead. I don't know what you are, but if you're somebody that's constantly checking out, more than likely you're opening yourself to these kind of beings. Yes. But see, if you're using substances to abuse, like, alcohol or drugs, then now you're altering your physiology. So also it's not just, I'm scrolling on social media, which is also a low density activity, but you're actually shutting down your body. When you're drinking, you're killing brain cells. You're shutting down your emotions. You're not, you black out. I mean, you have all kinds of situations where you're not even fully conscious. So when you're not walking around fully conscious, then you are a target for that kind of thing.
Okay. And so that's kind of what you experienced in your previous life in corporate America, just living unconsciously. And then what what happened that was like, okay, come on, Michelle?
I guess my spiritual path started. I moved to California from Washington, D.C. with my boyfriend at the time. We were going to get married, and so was transferred to Southern California and asked me if I would come with him. So I did. It was always my dream to move to California. So I went with him, and within first couple years, everything kind of unraveled, and we broke up, and I was really devastated. But it was always my dream to move to live in California, so I stayed. But I was in a lot of pain. I was grieving. I had put all my emotional eggs in that basket. I really thought that was my future, and then when it didn't work, it was like, okay, what are we doing now? And so, that led me to, once I got to LA, I was really guided. I didn't see it at the time, but within months after getting there, I was led to my teacher, and I started my first layer of healing. I went to therapy, and then I did crystal healing, and then I was doing past life regression. I learned all these things. So going to LA was really a catalyst for opening me up spiritually and really getting me on my path. And
Well, I just think it's so beautiful that you felt this calling. I always want to go to California. And as these things are starting to fall to pieces or unravel, if you will, it would be really easy to think like, oh, well, I can't trust that. Why am I here? But you looking at it, oh no, it was unfolding in my favor.
well, I'm always been someone who follows the signs. I'm my sister will tell you I'm the luckiest person in the world. But the truth is, I don't have a plan B. I'm all in on option A. And if option A blows up, then then I maneuver. But I'm all in. I go all in on everything I do. So I knew that I needed to move and get out of that town. Wasn't where I wanted to be. And I was traveling a lot for work. I had a job where I was a national accounts manager. So I was traveling all the time. And I had friends all over the Southwest. So I was looking at all the different places. And I just decided on LA because my dad called me one day. My dad, it was really influential in my life. So he calls me one day to tell me, hey, sorry about your relationship falling apart. That must really suck. And he goes, but on the positive side, you're living in California and it always was your dream to be there. And so he reminded me as I was thinking, should I move to Denver? Should I move to Phoenix? Should I move to he was like, you're living in California and that's your dream. So when he said that, I was like, oh, he's right. I can't leave California. I've been trying to get here for 20 years. At the time I was LA. So it was an easy move. And I also, my creativity was opening up. I was feeling this really big calling to get more creative. I could tell that my soul was crying out for some nourishment. And LA is one of the most creative, it's a city of artists. So it just seemed like the perfect place. So that's how I ended up there. And they say when you go to Los Angeles, you move there to be discovered, but you end up discovering yourself.
Oh, interesting. So what did you create in that time? Like when you were feeling your creativity opening, what was it you created or learned about yourself?
I was guided to a crystal jewelry class and I started making jewelry. And it was love at first sight. Like from the very first class, I was like buying beads and tools and I was like all in, and I did it for like 20 years. I think that for me, the crystals were healing. So when you're working with them in your hands, you're taking in all those energies. And what I realized later, not at the time, I was just buying whatever, because crystals are whatever people go, what crystal should I get? Whatever one you're attracted to. Whatever you're attracted to, that's the energy that you need. So I was just buying crystals from that perspective, but everything I was buying was green. I was making a lot of labradorite and a lot of prehnite, and green is the heart chakra. So it was all heart healing for me.
I love that you shared that, because intuitively we know, but we try to make things logical. But intuitively you knew exactly what you needed.
Yes, I did. And then I was led to people, places, and things. I was always being led. And even when I decided to sell everything and move to Mexico, that was not my mind thinking it. I mean, although my mind was like ready, I'd wanted to move for a long time. It was the message that I got. Decide what you want, make it real and from the heart, and it's yours.
You were ready for the next evolution. So what has this stage of your life, like what have you found in this place where you're at right now? What would you maybe even title the chapter of this phase?
This is the Mariposa House of Metamorphosis, like this is the co-creation of God. I am God's vessel. I am a vessel of God, and I've dedicated the rest of my life to serving God and humanity. And I've dedicated all my life savings, all my energy, everything that I'm doing is all about that.
Ugh, such a courageous, bold, beautiful move. And I just thank you for leading women and showing them what's possible outside of logic, and really following those heart callings, because you're right, it's not something that we choose, it's something that chooses us. I mean, we're both writing this book. I was terrible at English. I'm still terrible at English. I would have never chose to write a book. I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but it was something I felt called to. And a lot of times we can't see why, but God knows why. And then it's like we do all of these little things and we don't really know what we're going to end up with. And then one day I have this vision of us like looking, and it's like we have this whole forest of how it all comes together in this beautiful way.
Yeah. That's one of the gifts of writing this book is hindsight, right? Now I can see the journey. Now I can see all the pieces and how they all fit together and how they all brought me here. But when it was happening, I had no idea. So it's really, life is a trust fall. You just have to follow the signs and know that they're taking you to your highest and best good.
So what do you think blocks most women from that?
Well, they don't trust. They want everything to make sense. Life doesn't make sense. When you just accept that life doesn't make sense, then your life will be so much easier. Because we're not here.
Well,
God didn't put us on this planet to live from our mind. Our mind was never supposed to be leading us. Our heart is supposed to be leading us, and our imagination. The mind is just a tool to support your heart and your imagination and your soul. The mind, people are living from logic, and life isn't logical.
that's where we really see the quantum leaps and the miracles, is when we aren't making these steps really logical, because then God only has like certain things that he can work within, right? It has to follow the logical plan. But when we let go of the logical plan, that's when we see these amazing soul connections. And I could have never planned that, because God has a higher view of what he's actually creating that we can't see or even comprehend. But
Yeah.
you're right. It is a full trust kind of thing, and
It
belief
it
that
is. And that's why so many women don't, and that's one of the things I really help women with on my retreats is building that trust. Because, you hear these things and you think, well, that doesn't make sense. How is that going to happen? Or you just go, that sounds interesting. How can I make that happen? And the how is not your job. The way that I got here, I never could have figured out the how. I just had to make the choice to do it, and then you'll be led. Even when I found the house that I had co-created with God, and God was like, you can't look for it. It will find you. How is a house going to find me? You know what I mean? I'm just supposed to sit here and it's going to call me on the phone. I'm ready for you. Then I ended up breaking my femur. and I was bedridden for like a month, and I only had a month. I only had a month left on my lease. And so, and God's like, but how's this coming? Yes, I broke my femur the day after Christmas, and I'd lived in this town for about 6 months. It's a really small mountain town in southern Mexico. I slipped and fell, and I cracked my femur, and then I went to get an X-ray, and they showed me that it was fractured, and I needed to have a surgery. And so the next day I had the surgery, and then they told me I needed to be in bed for a month. And then this is just a really great example of how you don't even know how this is all going to work. Because in Mexico, when you go to the hospital, people don't speak English. Some of them do, but not very many. And I live in a small indigenous town. So no, it's not. They even told me my family had to come and stay with me at the hospital. And I'm like, well, that's not happening. I needed to go to another hospital where they actually had people that like a American hospital. So I was lucky I got a really great surgeon. I had great surgery. And then a friend that I had just met, this was in December, and I had met this woman in August. She worked for a woman as a caregiver for this 100-year-old woman with Alzheimer's. And this woman had her in her house, and she was caring for this Alzheimer patient. And so she had a whole staff of nurses and caregivers just dedicated to this one old lady. And my friend was one of the caregivers. And she also rented medical equipment for like $5 a month. You know, like walkers, a hospital bed, bedpans. It didn't matter what you rented. Everything was $5 a month. So she rented me a hospital bed. And then while I was in the hospital having surgery, my friend that I just met in August, her and her ex-husband went to my apartment and moved my bedroom downstairs. Happened to have 2 empty rooms in my apartment downstairs. They turned one into my bedroom, and they moved all of my bed stuff into the other room because I had to have 24/7 care. So all this was happening while I was in the hospital by these random people. And then other people that I didn't know, because they were translating for me and rearranging their schedule to come and sit with me at the hospital. It was a miracle. I cried every single day in gratitude. I couldn't believe all the things that were happening for me. I had created a community in the 6 months I was there. I didn't even know. They all came out of the woodwork to help me. And then I had this staff of people that was caring for me, and I was healing this emotional trauma from my infancy that I didn't even know I had. And that became the healing. The femur fracture, that was kind of secondary to this emotional healing that was happening. And then from there, and then my house showed up, and all these women, my assistant was one of my caregivers. I hired her. I said, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the plan is with this house, but God has a plan. So if you want to hang out and work for me, then I would love to have you. And she's still with me 2 years later, my right-hand person.
In hearing that story, you know, our past generations were wired for survival, and it did take a lot of logical and linear moves. And now what we're being called into is this evolution of a higher trust of the divine.
Right. Well, we're living in a higher frequency. Our bodies are changing because the earth is changing. We're moving from the 3rd dimension into the 5th dimension. So our body has to adjust as well. So that's why you're seeing all these autoimmune diseases, why you're having all these symptoms that no one can explain, because your body is shifting and changing to live on an earth that you've been living your whole life, but the earth is changing. So you have to as well. And so
that holds all of those generational patterns and traumas that we're being asked to like heal and let go of, just like you were in Mexico with the femur and the emotional healing that was really taking place, that was a huge pivot for you to step into the fullest expression of yourself and lead others into that, right?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up. All the healing that we're doing, all the healing, because all of that lower density energies from our ancestors is in our cells and in our DNA. And we can't live in this lower frequency. We have to release that energy so that we can raise the frequency of our physicality so that we can be in alignment with Mother Earth herself. And that's why all this stuff is coming up to be healed.
So what would you say to women that are currently at a place in their life that they just feel like hitting brick walls, their health is, they're running into hormone problems and just right, left, and sideways, there's a different thing coming up. What would you say to those women?
Well, I would say that your best solution for what's happening with you physically is not a medical doctor. It's two things. You need to find an alternative modality that aligns with you. And you need to start looking at what emotions are causing this. And I recommend everyone start with Louise Hay, A to Z Healing. She has every single symptom and every single reason, emotional reason why you're having that symptom. Down to my stroke. Like when I had the stroke and you look it up, it said resistant to change. Well, I knew I had to quit drinking. I knew I had to quit drinking for years. And I just like, not yet, not yet, not yet. So I had that stroke and my stroke was like, it's time. So I didn't quit drinking, but I slowed my ass way down. And that was the beginning. So I drank for about 8 more years, but not like at the same pace that I was drinking. And so it's an emotional journey. You have to start understanding what's happening within you. My asthma has been so bad. It's from a lot of grief, a lot of spiritual death and letting go and loss that we're all experiencing. And it got chronic, and it just got to a point where I just couldn't breathe, and it was affecting my life greatly. And so I went to this medicine woman in my town. She lives in a little shack. I love this story. She lives in a little shack in the mountains with no running water. And she's surrounded by plants, and she makes these tinctures and all these different bottles. And she meets with you and talks to you about what's going on in your life. And then she takes all the bottles and she mixes of all these formulas of tinctures for you. And I left with like 3 different tinctures and some tobacco leaves and a tea, the leaves for a tea, all stuff that she just foraged in the woods around her house. Right. And within 2 days, I was like 90% better. I'm like 10 days in and I've never had this much energy. I didn't know how sick I really was. And the reason I tell you this is because she made this tea for me, and she gave it, brought it over after I had my appointment. It was like the next stage of my healing. And she said, I like this tea. It has these 4 ingredients. She messaged me what they were. And so I drank it like this morning and I felt so good. And so I took those 4 ingredients and I put them into AI and I said, tell me what the physical and emotional benefits of these 4 herbs. And they were exactly what was happening with me, emotionally and physically. So she wasn't trying to just solve it. Like, oh, you have a rash. Here's something to put on it. She's looking at what is the emotional. She asked me what was happening with me. We talked about the grief that I experienced over the summer. We talked about a lot, like how hopeless I felt around this asthma, just a lot of the emotions that I was experiencing. And then her prescription was not just to soothe me physically, but to also soothe me emotionally. And 10 days later, I feel like a new person.
Yeah. A lot of healing actually comes in being witnessed and seen and like honored. And so when you can shine a light on some of those emotions that you're having and you say hello to them, healing happens like that in witnessing. And so that's what she did for you, is she was standing in her gifts as a woman and the things she had been led to, but also witnessing and seeing you. That is how we heal, is by being witnessed and in connection.
But you know what you just said is so aligned with, remember at the beginning, I was saying when you're clearing the energy, all you have to do is say hello to it and it will release. And emotions are just energy in motion. So it's just by acknowledging it. And when you're doing this work, what happens is you start to know things and you can't not know them. And once you know them, then they come up layer by layer to be released.
Yeah. So beautiful. So what would you say to the woman that's like on this brink of more alternative health and Western health, Western medical?
I think you can use them together. I think, you know, when I was diagnosed with this other thing that I had going on, my body is my messenger. Like it really was telling me, your life's not working for you. Like digestive issues, I had a stroke, I broke my femur. I've had so many things happen. But when this stuff happens, you just have to know it's all happening for you. It's not happening to you. And there's a reason and a lesson because we're all in school. This thing that we're doing here, it's Earth School. We're here to learn. We're here to grow and evolve. And so when you start to reframe and look at life that way, then you realize you see things differently. You don't feel like a victim. You feel like, oh, another lesson. I wonder what this one's about, you know?
It's a gift. What am I going to learn? Who am I going to come out the other side as?
Exactly.
Truly, truly. And that's such a beautifully empowered way to live. Truly. So,
Yeah.
so much more freedom
And,
in
you
that.
know, we're all healers. So one of the things I like to teach everyone that I work with is how to take care of themselves. You have all the answers within you. You have all the capabilities to not just to answer the big questions, but to heal yourself. Whether it's through, like recently, I was brought to my attention, you know, that we all have this one big thing that's holding us back, that we really have a hard time with, that we struggle with. And it is preventing us from really reaching our highest potential. So, but you can't know it until you know it. Like as I'm writing the book and I'm looking back on all that's happened to me and I'm rereading like channels and messages that I received like a year or two ago, and the answers are right there, but I didn't see them. So when this came up, what is it that's preventing me from really having it all, from really expanding into my greatness? And I realize it's my body. And my body has been telling me this, that I need to be more disciplined in what I put into my body, disciplined in my daily movement, disciplined in just everything. Like discipline is the thing that I need to really take me to the next level. So
Really deep beauty in that, because a lot of times when we think about going through this life, we think like, oh, it's going to come at the cost of my health or my relationships or whatever. But what we're learning is if we do it differently and we come from a place of love and caring for this, we can go further faster because that's the energetics that we're building on.
mhm. And it's also about devotion. It seems to be the key to everything. And devotion can be your passion for your body, your passion for your relationship with source. It can be your passion about your work you do, the relationships you're in, but devotion and really truly devoting yourself to things that feed and nourish you and that really help to elevate you to the next place. That's really
So
the
beautiful,
key.
Michelle. So beautiful.
But
Thank
you
you
know
so
all
much.
this.
Thank you. I know, but it's just so fun to hear how other people and they speak from a place of truth and what they've experienced in their own, lived experience.
So often we know the answers. We know the solutions. We just don't do it.
Yeah.
We think it must be something else. It can't be that. It's got to be something else more complicated or like a pill in a bottle or,
It really is. Life is continually inviting us into our own self-mastery and to move from a place of love and our worth. That's always what it comes back to. What can I learn from this? Oh, I'm not exercising my body to look a certain way or to do it because I'm not enough. I'm doing it because, how can I care for this vehicle that gets to carry my soul through life, right? It's totally
yeah.
different energetics.
Yes. That's a really good way to put it.
As we close, what is one thing that you think every modern day woman needs to know?
That they have all the answers and that they just need to trust. That the crazier it is, the more likely it's the truth. That's really true. Because so often now we download stuff or we hear things and we're like, well, that sounds kind of cool, but I don't know how. How is not your job? Get out of your own way. God knows. God is a God of a zillion, an infinite amount of possibilities. So your mind only knows what it knows from what it's experienced. So if you really want to be all you can be, then just don't question. Just follow the breadcrumbs and you'll be led. Because you have a whole team of energetic beings. You're constantly surrounded by beings of 100% source light that want you to be the best person that you are. So know that and be that and trust that. That's a lot, but that's what I do.
And for as lonely as we can feel, really trust that unseen to we are so supported. And can we ask for the assistance to be supported?
Ask for help.
To co-create with us.
You don't have to do it alone. You're not meant to do it alone. And you're never alone anyway. So you might as well ask for what you want and what you need.
Michelle, thank you so much for being here. You are a gift to this world. Thank you for following those beautiful nudges.
Oh, thank you.
And being an example. So fun to watch you create.
Thank you. I'm grateful for your friendship and for this opportunity to share my magic with other people.
Yeah, we'll put your information in the show notes so that people can check out your retreats.
And my free
Work
gifts.
with you. And free gifts. Until next time.
Bye.
Trust your knowing. Take bold, courageous moves. Honor your energy and rise into who you're meant to be. Feel free to carry this alignment into every step, breath, and conversation. If today resonated, send it to a friend, because together we rise.